If you had asked me even a year ago, I would have said my marriage was solid. My husband, Daniel, and I had been together for over 15 years, married for 12. We're both in our late 30s. I'm 37, he's 39. We built a life together, a cozy home, steady jobs, a circle of friends, and what I thought was trust. Looking back now, the cracks were subtle at first. He started staying later at work, saying deadlines were piling up. He became strangely protective of his phone, tilting the screen away, setting new passwords, taking it with him even to the bathroom. When I asked, he brushed it off with a laugh, saying I was being paranoid. But the warmth between us, it started to fade. Our conversations became shorter, more practical. Intimacy felt forced. I told myself it was just the stress of life, the weight of responsibility. I clung to the belief that marriages go through seasons, and this was just a cold one. I was wrong. The night I found out, I wasn't even looking for proof. That's the cruel irony. Daniel had left his laptop open in the living room. He usually never did. He was careful, meticulous. But that night, he'd stepped into the shower and forgotten to close it. I walked past, intending to just grab my book, when a notification popped up on the corner of the screen. A message. From someone named L. Curiosity froze me. My stomach twisted, my hands shook, but I clicked. And there it was, months of messages. Not just flirtation, not just emotional intimacy, graphic, undeniable confessions of an affair. Plans to meet in hotels. I miss your touch. Last night was amazing. I felt like I'd been punched. What made it worse was the tone of his words. He sounded alive in those messages. Excited, tender, passionate, in ways he hadn't been with me for so long. I couldn't breathe. My chest was tight, my throat burned. Tears blurred my vision, but I kept scrolling, desperate and horrified all at once. Every word was a dagger. And then, like some cruel twist of fate, I realized the truth. The man I thought I knew had been living a double life right under my nose. That was the moment my world split in two, before the messages and after. I didn't plan the confrontation. I didn't rehearse the words. When Daniel came out of the shower, towel wrapped around his waist, humming like nothing was wrong, something inside me snapped. I was still sitting on the couch, laptop open in front of me. My hands were trembling, my face streaked with tears. He froze the second he saw me, his eyes flicking to the screen. The color drained from his face. "Daniel," I said, my voice low, raw, barely recognizable as my own. "Who is L?" He opened his mouth, closed it again. For a second, I almost thought he might deny it, spin some story. But he didn't. He just stood there, silent, shame written all over his face. "Answer me," I demanded, louder this time. My chest felt like it was going to cave in. "Who is she?" His voice cracked when he finally spoke. "Her name is Laura. She's someone from work." I thought I would break apart right there. Hearing the name, knowing she wasn't some stranger but part of his daily life, made it so much worse. "I trusted you," I whispered, clutching the sides of the laptop like it was the only thing holding me upright. "How long?" "Almost a year," he admitted, his eyes darting to the floor. "Almost a year. 12 months of lies, excuses, stolen moments." My entire body shook with rage and heartbreak. I wanted to scream, to hit him, to throw everything we had built into shards around the room. But all I could do was stare at him, the stranger standing where my husband used to be. I can't describe the exact feeling that took over me. It was too many at once. Anger, grief, humiliation, disgust, despair. They all slammed into me like waves, one after another, until I thought I would drown right there on the living room floor. I screamed at him, not even forming real sentences at first. Just raw, broken sounds pulled from the depths of me. Then came the words, "How could you? Why wasn't I enough? Do you realize what you've done to us?" He kept saying, "I'm sorry, I never meant to hurt you." But those words felt empty, pathetic. You don't accidentally cheat for a year. You don't not mean to betray the person who has stood by your side for more than a decade. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal itself. It was the realization that the man I loved, the man I trusted with my soul, had looked me in the eye every single day and chosen to lie. He kissed me goodnight, sat across from me at dinner, promised he loved me, all while his heart, his body, his loyalty belonged to someone else. That broke something inside me. I cried until my throat burned and my body felt hollow. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every memory of us together, now tainted, rewritten. I wondered how many of those smiles had been fake. How many late nights at work were really stolen hours with her. I felt like I was going insane, torn between love and hate, rage and grief. And deep down, beneath all of it, there was this sharp, gnawing question I couldn't silence. What's wrong with me that he had to go looking for someone else? The following days blurred into one another, but inside me, everything was sharp, jagged. Every time I looked at him, I saw her. Every time he spoke, I heard the lies layered beneath his voice. I couldn't eat, I couldn't focus on work. Even simple tasks felt impossible. Daniel kept trying. He hovered around me, pleading, swearing he'd end it, promising therapy, begging for another chance. But the words fell on me like ashes, meaningless and cold. I wanted to believe him, God, I wanted to, but the trust had already crumbled to dust. The breaking point came one evening when he reached out to touch me, as if nothing had changed. His hand brushed my arm, and I recoiled like I'd been burned. The revulsion in my reaction shocked us both. That's when I knew something inside me had snapped beyond repair. I can't even stand the thought of you touching me, I told him, my voice trembling. His face collapsed with pain, but I didn't care. My body was screaming the truth my mind was trying to deny. The man I had once loved so completely now felt like a stranger. Worse, like an enemy. I locked myself in the bedroom that night, sobbing until my chest ached. I realized I was grieving not just the betrayal, but the death of my marriage, the death of the us I thought would last forever. And the cruelest part? He was still in the house, just a few feet away, and yet I had never felt more alone. After days of silence, of circling each other like ghosts in our own home, I knew I couldn't live in limbo anymore. I had to decide, fight for this broken marriage or walk away. Both choices felt unbearable. I sat at the kitchen table one morning, staring at my coffee, untouched and cold. The thought of rebuilding trust seemed impossible. Even if he cut ties with her, even if we went to therapy, could I ever look at him again without seeing her shadow? Could I ever let his hands on me without remembering where they'd been? But the alternative, ending it, terrified me too. Divorce. Splitting our lives apart. Losing not just a husband, but a partner, a routine, a future we had planned. I was 37. Starting over felt like standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down into a void. Daniel sat across from me, his face worn, eyes red from nights of begging and apologies. Please, he whispered. Just give me a chance to make this right. I searched his face for the man I once knew, for some flicker of the love that had carried us through the years. But all I saw was a stranger who had chosen someone else over me, time and time again. And in that moment, a cold clarity settled over me. I had already lost him. The choice wasn't whether to fight for us or let go. The choice was whether I valued myself enough to stop bleeding for a man who had already left me in every way that mattered. The morning after that conversation, I woke up with swollen eyes and a pounding head. But something inside me felt different, steadier, colder, like the storm had cleared just enough for me to see the path in front of me. I sat Daniel down in the living room. My voice was calm, but every word cut like glass. I can't do this anymore. I can't spend the rest of my life wondering if you're lying to me, if you're sneaking off to her, or someone else. You've taken something from me that can never be returned. I don't forgive you. And I don't want to try. His eyes filled with tears. He begged, actually dropped to his knees, promising me everything he thought I wanted to hear. Therapy, honesty, quitting his job, cutting off all contact with her. But it was too late. His desperation only made the betrayal feel heavier, like he was trying to patch a ship that had already sunk. For the first time since I'd discovered the affair, I felt a strange sense of control. Painful, yes, but also freeing. I wasn't powerless anymore. I was choosing. And I was choosing myself. I'm filing for divorce, I said quietly. Saying it out loud nearly broke me, but it was also the truest thing I had spoken in months. Daniel buried his face in his hands, sobbing. I didn't comfort him. I couldn't. My tears had already been spent, my heart already shattered. Now there was only resolve. The days after my decision were some of the hardest of my life. The house, once familiar and warm, now felt like a battlefield littered with memories I didn't want to touch. His coffee mug on the counter, his shoes by the door, his laughter echoing faintly in my head. Everything cut me like glass. Daniel tried to act like nothing had changed. He still made me breakfast, still kissed my forehead out of habit, still called me love. Each gesture felt like salt in an open wound. I pulled away, cold and distant, because if I let him close again, I knew I would drown in the grief. At night, I cried silently into my pillow, wondering how I was going to survive the dismantling of my entire life. Divorce isn't just about losing a person. It's about losing routines, shared jokes, the comfort of another body in bed. It's about looking at the future you built together and realizing it no longer exists. My friends tried to be supportive, telling me I was strong, that I deserved better, that time would heal me. I nodded, thanked them, but deep down I felt hollow. Strong. I felt like a ghost walking through the ruins of my own marriage. The paperwork, the logistics, the conversations about splitting things up, they were cold, practical steps, but each one was a knife twisting deeper. I signed my name on the documents with hands that shook, each signature another nail in the coffin of us. And still, despite the anger, despite the betrayal, I caught myself missing him, the old him. The version of Daniel I thought I knew. That was the cruelest part, grieving a man who maybe never even existed. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It crept in slowly, like cracks spreading across glass, until one day everything shattered. I remember sitting in my car in the grocery store parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel, unable to move. I had gone there to buy milk, something so simple, so ordinary. But the weight of reality hit me. I wasn't shopping for us anymore. No more thinking about his favorite cereal, or the snacks he liked after work. It was just me now. The thought crushed me. I broke down in that car, sobbing so violently I couldn't breathe. It felt like my chest was being ripped open. Passers-by must have seen me, but I didn't care. I wasn't just mourning the marriage. I was mourning the years I gave to him, the woman I used to be, the life I thought we'd share until we were old. At home, things got worse. I couldn't eat. I barely slept. I stopped answering messages from friends because I was tired of hearing the same pitying words. I started doubting myself, questioning everything. Was I too boring? Too distant? Too flawed? Did I somehow push him into her arms? The self-blame was a poison I swallowed daily. Daniel tried to check on me, but every time he spoke, I felt my skin crawl. His presence was unbearable. I told him to leave, and when he finally packed a bag and walked out, the silence he left behind was deafening. That was the true collapse, the realization that I was completely, utterly alone. After the collapse came the anger, fierce, burning, uncontrollable. It was like my sadness had been smoldering for weeks, and suddenly it ignited into fire. I hated him. I hated the way he ruined me, the way he walked around with guilt painted on his face like that was enough. I hated how he got to choose betrayal, while I was forced to live with the wreckage. I remember one night tearing through the house, collecting everything of his that remained, shirts, books, photographs, even his stupid toothbrush, and stuffing it all into trash bags. I hurled them onto the porch and told him to pick them up before I set them on fire. My hands shook, my throat raw from screaming. I wasn't even sure if he deserved all that rage, but I had no place else to put it. The anger wasn't just at him, though. It was at her, too. Laura. I knew it was unfair to dump it all on her. Daniel was the one who owed me loyalty, but I couldn't stop imagining her smug smile, her whispers in his ear, her hands where mine used to be. I wanted to hate her face, even though I'd never seen it. And underneath it all, I was angry at myself. For not seeing the signs sooner. For believing his lies. For giving him my heart so completely that he had the power to destroy me. The fury came in waves, explosive outbursts followed by crushing exhaustion. But in some twisted way, the anger felt better than the grief. At least when I was angry, I felt alive again. After weeks of anger, something unexpected happened. I went numb. It wasn't peaceful. It wasn't the calm after a storm. It was as if someone had flicked a switch and drained all my emotions, leaving me hollow and detached. I moved through the motions, work, meals, phone calls, but nothing touched me anymore. Even the memory of the affair, the fiery anger, the suffocating grief, all of it felt distant, like a dream I was watching from behind glass. People told me I should process my feelings, but the truth was I didn't want to. Feeling hurt meant reliving it. Feeling angry meant touching the wound. And feeling sad meant admitting the depth of my loss. Numbness became my shield, my fragile armor against the rawness of reality. Some nights, I caught myself staring at the ceiling, empty-eyed, wondering if I would ever cry again. Wondering if I would ever feel warmth, laughter, desire, or hope. The numbness was both a curse and a relief. I wasn't breaking anymore, but I wasn't healing either. I knew I had to eventually face everything I'd tried to block, but for now, I allowed myself this strange limbo. For the first time since discovering the betrayal, I wasn't screaming, I wasn't crying, and I wasn't falling apart. I was just existing. Numbness didn't last forever. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, a tiny spark of strength began to grow inside me. It started in small ways, cooking a proper meal for myself, forcing myself out of the house for a walk, replying to a friend's message without collapsing into tears. One morning, as I stood in front of the mirror brushing my hair, I caught my reflection, and for the first time in months, I saw me again. Not the betrayed, hollow shell, but the woman I had always been, flawed, yes, but resilient. My eyes, though tired, held a quiet determination. I realized something crucial. Surviving his betrayal didn't mean forgiving him. It didn't mean taking him back or pretending the past didn't exist. It meant reclaiming myself, my body, my mind, my life. I started making plans, small ones at first, but real. I joined a yoga class, reconnected with friends I had neglected, even booked a short solo trip. Every little step was a declaration. I would not let his choices define me. It was terrifying and liberating all at once. The grief and anger were still there, like shadows lingering on the edges of my mind, but now I could face them. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope that maybe one day I'd feel whole again. Rebuilding wasn't sudden. It was painstaking, slow, and often painful. I had to learn how to trust myself again, to listen to my own needs instead of bending to someone else's desires. I realized that part of the reason the betrayal hurt so deeply was that I had lost myself along the way, prioritizing his happiness over mine for years. I started setting boundaries, with him, with people in my life, even with my own thoughts. No more checking my phone obsessively, no more imagining his face with her, no more letting my self-worth depend on someone who had clearly devalued me. Therapy helped. It was terrifying at first, talking aloud about every humiliating detail, every stab to my heart. But eventually it became freeing. I learned to feel again without letting the pain consume me. I learned that my feelings were valid, that my grief, my anger, my shame didn't make me weak. They made me human. I also reconnected with passions I had abandoned, painting, reading, even volunteering. These small acts reminded me that life could still be rich, full, and beautiful, even after such devastation. Step by step, I built a life where I was no longer defined by his betrayal. I was defining myself again. Closure didn't arrive in a dramatic moment or a perfect scene. It wasn't a confrontation or a speech. It was quiet, subtle, and entirely my own. One evening, months after the divorce was finalized, I found myself walking past a cafe where Daniel and I used to meet for weekend coffee. I froze for a moment, heart racing, but then I realized something incredible. I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel the jagged edge of grief, the raw sting of betrayal. I simply felt neutral, free. I thought about him, about what he'd done, and for the first time, I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to scream, to cry, to hurt him the way he hurt me. I felt pity, perhaps, and a deep understanding that some people are incapable of valuing what they have until it's gone. And then I smiled quietly to myself. Not because I had forgotten, not because the pain was gone, but because I realized that he no longer had power over me. That chapter of my life was closed, and I could finally write the next one on my own terms. I had survived the betrayal. I had survived him, and I was stronger for it. Now looking back, I see the full arc of what happened, the love, the lies, the heartbreak, and the eventual rebirth. It's painful, yes, but also strangely enlightening. I learned that betrayal isn't a reflection of your worth. His choices were his, not mine. I learned that grief is not weakness, and anger is not failure. I learned that healing is not linear. It comes in fits and starts, in waves of tears, moments of laughter, and quiet days when nothing seems to matter but the fact that you're still here. Most importantly, I learned to trust myself again. To listen to my instincts, to honor my feelings, to protect my heart without shutting it off entirely. Life after betrayal is not about forgetting. It's about reclaiming, rebuilding, and remembering that you are whole, even if someone tried to break you. If I could give advice to anyone going through this, it would be this. Feel every emotion, allow yourself to grieve, but never let someone else's choices define your life. You are stronger than the pain, braver than the betrayal, and more capable of love than you realize. I survived, and I will thrive.